play a basketball game. You got three neutral games here in a row, and obviously being able to start first one that's pretty close proximity wise. Not a fan of the 9:30 tip, but is what it is, and excited to see where we're at. I have no updates on Zane or TJ. They're making progress, but we will be without Ronnie DeGray for a little while, probably 4 weeks, maybe six. But he fractured his wrist the other day, and we will get that taken care of, and then we'll kind of play it by ear. So we'll need some players to do more, and then at the same time, we'll have to have some guys who can fill in the gaps.
Is Quincy gonna be good to go for Friday?
Quincy Ballard will be ready tomorrow night.
How much of a difference is that? Only having one center the other night. How much does
Yeah,
it help having Quincy back?
not only just having one center, but having to play Ronnie, as the backup to him. So then not having Ronnie there for the second half, Ronnie gave it a go and just wasn't able to really fight through again what was a fractured wrist. But that's big. I mean, we're going to find ourselves. Corey, we've been splitting minutes with Corey and Ronnie. So, not that Corey's happy about Ronnie not being here, but Corey understands he's going to have to shoulder a bigger load and play more minutes. Most players are usually fine with that. You will see scenarios where we play Mate and Quincy together. So, it's good to have Quincy back. And then we'll have to have primarily looking at Joy right now to be able to fill in some gaps. But a lot of this will be play it by ear, and we could also play four guards based on what the opposition is doing and with the one center. So feel good about our options.
I know you guys have been harping on rebounding too. Being a better rebounding team. Obviously, Ronnie really good at rebounding. Does that just make the challenge even greater? These next 4 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, when you lose your leading rebounder and a double digit score, it makes it tough. So you have a guy in Ronnie who's averaging 10 and 7 and doing a really good job. You have, Justin is our second leading rebounder, and so our guards are going to have to pick up more of a load. This is going to happen, especially when you deal with teams that shoot threes. There's going to be a lot of longer rebounds, so your guards are going to have to be able to understand shot radius and where they need to be. But I will tell you, there's going to be some games where we have to play Mate and Quincy together in order to counter some of what they're doing. But our guards need to pick it up. Specifically, Xavier's better rebounder than what he's exhibited. And then AJ and Bijan need to do a better job as well.
Game tomorrow night. I don't know if it's exactly right, but I think you and St. Louis are top 15 in experience, right? Is that a stat that I saw? I think.
I have not seen St. Louis. I know we are, but I didn't check St. Louis. But again, they're really experienced. I mean, Josh has done phenomenal job, built a tremendous program at Indiana State. But Isaiah Swope being able to come over, Robbie Avila, which is what most people are familiar with. But I would also tell you that the some of the pieces that they already had that remained at St. Louis, the three guys who remained, really fit with what they do. So I think it's a match made in heaven for those guys who stayed. So it will be tough, but I know from playing them a year ago that they had an experienced squad then. So
How do you prepare for? They have their own injury with Avia. Everyone fell in love with him last year. How do you prepare where a guy might play and they're going to look totally different, and if he doesn't play, they're going to be a totally different team.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've heard him called the best passing big man. I don't know much about Robbie. I've seen his game. I couldn't comparatively speak on if he's the best in college basketball, but I don't know that it really changes how much they do. I mean, they run a ton of actions with a ton of splits, a ton of cuts. So it really doesn't matter, I think, who's in that position. Now, his ability to step out and shoot the three, his ability to pinpoint and deliver passes, that may be a little bit different, but I, they're probably a better offensive rebounding team, as we saw in the LMU game without him. So that presents an issue as well. So I don't know how different in style of play they'll be, but personnel obviously will change.
you always are, pretty harsh in the film room. What was that like? How did the players respond after, watching Monday's film? And what's the big challenge this week? What are you kind of pushing the guys to do this week in practice?
Well, I mean, 70% rebound rate isn't gonna kill Capone. Like, I mean, we've got to be a lot better at being able to retrieve more of those opportunities. I thought the majority of our buckets were occurring in transition. We have to be sharper in our half court execution, but to be honest with you, so much of that is just filtered through Quincy and some of the stuff that he does. And then I thought it took us a half to kind of get adjusted to that. You know, if you Harlan had a shot blocked, and then he took 2 threes that he missed, and so if you take those 3 plays out of it, he's 7 for 8 at finishing around the rim, but everybody else needs to be better. And I just thought that there was a lineup that we were able to get to the last 8 minutes of the game that kind of propelled us. And that's not something we're going to be able to rely on night in and night out. I mean, other guys have got to be able to step up and perform, and it's going to help the fact that we do have some depth, but at the same time, we have to be sharper defensively in some of the stuff that we're doing. I just thought we gambled too much, didn't have our backside to the rim like we needed to, so some guys were able to make cuts and able to make plays. And then, more importantly, I didn't think our ball pressure was very good. And some of that's my fault. Didn't want to put too much on Justin and get him fatigued too early, just knowing that we were going to need him. But we have to do a better job of ball pressure.
How big of a deal is this next week? I think that these next 3 opponents in whatever combination are the 3 highest ranked that you've played so far this season. Just, what kind of attention to detail that carries you through this week, or what do you do going through this?
Yeah, I'm excited about it because I think we're going to emerge better no matter what happens. Like, I mean, you have to play a challenging schedule, challenging teams, and we're going to come back when we return to Wichita late Friday night, early Saturday morning here in the next 10 days. We will come back a better basketball team. And some of this is, you're going to be a little bit shorthanded, so guys are going to get opportunities. I'm excited about that, of watching other guys shoulder bigger loads and being able to take on more and being able to perform. I'm excited about the opportunity of the teams that we get to play, but I know no matter how this plays out, this is going to prepare us for conference. And to be honest with you, I think we're going to get a ton of takeaways November is always a month for growth. And I think we'll come back having experienced a ton of growth because of these next 3 games.
Those 3 games being on the road, does it matter at all having like all that experience that TJ was referencing? I think a lot of older guys that have been on the road before, 3 straight games away from home can be a challenge sometimes. Do you feel like you guys are better off this season than last year?
Yeah, they don't play the conference tournament here in Wichita, and they don't play NCAA tournaments here in Coke Arena. So, well, we need to be good. The good thing is that we have experience. The Western Kentucky game, to start the season, I think that gives you a little bit of a boost. But being able to play, and again, I don't know anything about Minnesota, Wake Forest, Florida. I don't know anything about those, but I do know how fast St. Louis plays and the compromising positions that they put you in, and we're going to get a ton out of this game, and I'm excited about that. So it definitely helps to have older guys, and the fact that we have some experience already with a win on the road in Kentucky.
And playing in Kansas, the 2nd straight year, you guys have gone to KC to play neutral. Can you kind of explain the scheduling philosophy, and is it almost easier to play neutrals in KC than it is to bring somebody in Interest Bank? Is that part of it, or what's kind of the
Yeah, I mean, this is a third-party game that I think the NABC has a lot to do with, and so they reached out to us, and this was an opportunity. The teams that we talked about told us Iowa, Utah State, and St. Louis were the 3 teams committed, needed a 4th. We didn't know who we would play, but I did know that whoever we played, whether it be Iowa, Utah State, or St. Louis, I knew it was going to be a quality opponent. So it was good because, I mean, you're just 3 hours and change from where you need to be. and the challenge on a neutral court for your first time to be able to step away, and it's other teams as well. Well, take that back. I guess for Iowa and Utah State it is. For the St. Louis has played a neutral court game in South Dakota, but I think it'll be great for our players.
I was curious on the that tracking device that the players wear, like on the back of their shorts. Can you kind of explain, what kind of data you guys get from that and how helpful it is? Why do you guys do that?
What we get is kind of workload per minute. So you get an idea about how hard a player is going. Mm, the metrics behind it, I'm not sure, but it basically measures intensity and steps. How quickly are you taking your steps? How much ground do you cover? So after every practice, we get an idea about where we rank. So Paul Mills can say he's going hard, but at the end of the day, you can tell that he's just not the same level of motion and intensity that's required in order to really achieve what we're trying to achieve. So to give you an idea about today's practice was the sixth highest on workload per minute. So we've had 42 practices, but it ranked number 31 on total workload because it was a quick 90-minute practice, but the intensity was good to be in the top six. So I think sometimes players think they play hard, but now you don't have to guess, and you can just go straight to the data and say this was actually your worst one in regards to movement. Are you injured? Is everything okay? Back home, is everything okay in school? And it kind of allows you to ask questions with data that sometimes you may be guessing about. And you're especially paying attention when it's 2 days in a row on a specific kid. Do you not feel well? All of those things that play a part. But I do think it takes some of the guesswork out of it.
Is this something that you can use during games, or is this
Yeah,
just practice?
no, we use it in practice and in games. So, it's harder to get a gauge in games. We probably need to get a lot more games under our belt to really get an idea where the data was going to be, simply because minutes are inconsistent right now. But we use it every day in practice. And one player in particular, Bijan, on an occasion stuck his in his shoe one day rather than in the back of his shorts, and it looked like he was running all over the place. The film tells you otherwise. So they've learned how to game the system a little bit, and we've told them to stop putting it in their shoe. We're now aware when they do it, but they kind of figure things out on, look how intense I'm being, and come to find out they actually did their tracking device, and they went and put it on a dog, and the dog ran 3 miles and it was fast. But they've learned how to game the system a little bit, but it is good data in order to ascertain just where they're at mentally as well as physically.
Is there at some point will that inform like in-game decisions, or is this more like
I don't know that it'll inform in-game decisions at this point. 4 games in, I don't have enough data. I actually don't get the data after games simply because it's been inconsistent. The way that we kind of get an idea about who you are off the court is we're not the Miami Heat where we measure body fat once a week and we fine you if you're ever over 6%. But we do get an idea about sleep and off-court habits by the body fat measurements every 2 weeks.
So we may be seeing more Joy. What do you like about him? What can he contribute?
One, he needs to be a 3-and-D guy. You think that guys who've been around basketball long enough, they kind of understand. And was talking with him about 6 weeks ago and just shared with him, you need to be able to make threes, and you need to make an impact defensively, and you need to be a 3-and-D guy. And he had never heard that term before. And you think it's relatively common for people who've been around the game, but that's what he needs to do. He needs to be disruptive defensively. He's a great rebounder. We had a situation the other day where just his ability to go get an offensive rebound required the other team to foul him because his momentum was pretty good. He's a good athlete. He'll provide great energy. Offensively, he's capable of making a shot, but he needs to do some of the things that Ronnie did. He lacks 20 pounds that Ronnie has, obviously lacks the experience, but he's got great length, can be disruptive defensively, but we need him to do a great job on the glass and knock down a good percentage of open threes.
Obviously, being in November, like you said, it was like a month of learning and everything, but to have a 4-0 start going into this stretch, is the locker room long can we get this thing to go, or you have to tell them like it's November still, or how does that work?
No, I don't know that there's any pride. I mean, other than one game, the Western Kentucky game, we were favored, and I've thought the teams that we played were really good. No offense to people who sometimes watch the game. I think they just pay attention to whatever Vegas says, and if it doesn't go whatever Vegas says, they just go disappointment. Or if you exceeded whatever Vegas says, that's great. And I just say, that's not really how this works. And so I think for the most part that what you're paying attention to is how dialed into the details. Like, are we making progress through the details? But I don't think anybody in our locker room is like, I mean, if we're winning every game by 100, maybe. But this is a situation where the game will keep you pretty humble through this whole process, and it continues to do that. And I can assure you that if we sense an inch of pride, it'll get squashed pretty quick.
I think you've touched on this before, but like the importance of peer-to-peer leadership with somebody like AJ. Why is that important for for a player to have a voice in the locker room instead of just being a coach-led team?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have buy-in from players, and the only way that you get buy-in from players is they have to demonstrate it. So I shared with them the proverb yesterday: wounds from a friend can be trusted, but the enemy's going to multiply kisses, right? The people that are telling you how good you are and things are going great are people who don't want you to actually get better. The people who will treat you honestly, uh, those people who are in here, we need to tighten up these one area, two areas, 3 hours, three areas. People who treat you honestly can usually be trusted. And I think that's what you see. Like, you see a group where accountability, you need to do this better, you need to do that better. And it's not us as coaches pointing that out, it's peer to peer. When you see that level of accountability, that, man, nobody's trying to hurt your feelings, and you have players who are old enough to receive it, that is important. And so, hey, some of these things that a player may be telling you, you may or may not agree with. It may hurt your feelings. But at the end, they're not up here trying to just tell you you're doing great all the time. They're treating you honestly. And people who treat you honestly can usually be trusted. So that's what you're trying to cultivate more than anything, is a level of trust peer to peer. And you've heard me say it, a player coach team is better than a coach team. And if we're the only ones doing the talking, we're in trouble. And so it's what's great about having older guys. They're not as sensitive. They can kind of take it. They've been through a lot, but it's also coming person to person.
Did you sense that you're talking to AJ in the portal those early days? Did you sense that he was going to be a leader? I mean, could you just tell by talking to him?
Yeah, the good thing is we have a coach, Xavier Holland, who was around him for a year. And Xavier knew seen him through the ups and the downs, knew he was going to work, knew he was going to be about the right things. I mean, we had a guy here who coached Ronnie at Missouri, and so knew what we were getting with Ronnie. And I think what really helped is you had people who had been around those players for a year, so knew who we were getting with Ronnie, knew what we were getting with AJ, simply because people have experienced it, and that has a ton of value. It's tremendous. You can figure out if a player can play pretty quickly, but who they are as an individual and what their character is like is invaluable. And so when AJ first entered the portal and Xavier told us about him, one, we knew he could shoot. We needed that. But the thing that I reminded AJ of, and AJ's a good player, is we're not here to be a shot maker. We're here to be a basketball player. And there are so many other things that the game requires than just making shots. So we're not here just to, is our shot falling, is it not? There's a ton of other things that we need to be doing well. And he's receptive, and he wants to follow through and do those things. But his voice has been super impactful.
And then with Zane, what has he provided this team? Obviously in the rehab process, but like veteran voice on the sideline. What's that process been like? Trying to get him back.
Well, Zane is great because he's opinionated about everything. There is nothing, if you ever get 2 minutes with Zane, he will share his opinion about everything. So he's constantly commenting. I think that whenever you listen to people, previous coaches, you know, whether I talk to San Francisco, Nevada, Arizona State, all the previous coaches said, listen, he is about the right things. Just tell him what you need to be a sounding board to everybody else. Like he will be that. He will be a coach off the floor. So we tried to educate him. He's extremely involved in practice, but his willingness to just pass on what it is that we're trying. But he's got his own opinions, and sometimes you have to check Zane and say, Zane, no, we're not going there, but let's rein this back a little bit. But he's phenomenal because he's going to share his voice, and he's trying to be on the same page as everybody from the coaching staff to the guys on the court.
Anything else?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.